Number 4, leverage. Leverage depreciation equals wealth. I know I just talked about how paying cash is great, putting a big down payment down is great, but I want to illustrate for you the principle that mortgage financing is available, readily available for real estate investing, and it has a really profound impact on the total return you get on the investment. So here's an example. This is a comparison that I did. This is going back to 2015, so it's not completely up to date, but it still illustrates the idea. And that is that over the last 1968 to 2015, the blue line is that one you saw earlier. That's the housing market. That was up a little more than 1,000% over those 40 years. Then the Dow, during that same period, was up about 2,500% over that period, right? So they ended up in kind of the same place, but because they began, the Dow Jones was trading at half the price of the median priced house for a similar amount of money. I mean, this is apples and apples. Because it started out lower, ended up in the same spot, it was actually a substantially higher, 2.5 times larger total return on investment as a percentage. So the conclusion you might have is the stock market is a better place to invest than real estate. And a lot of people say that, but they'd be wrong, right? And here's the reason for that. Leverage. Let's imagine for another example here, I had a $100,000 piece of real estate I bought today. And in the next 12 months, it increases in value by 2.5%. So my property is worth $102,500 a year later. All right, so I made $2,500 for doing nothing, right? Just for holding it, which is 2.5%, right? Well, that's not right, because in this example, I only put down $25,000 on it. Okay, so if my $25,000 increased by $2,500, I actually made a 10% return. My cash return of $2,500 is compared to my $25,000 that I actually put down. So that 10% as opposed to 2.5%, that has an amazing impact over time because you have less money at risk and the value you're creating through appreciation of the property is based upon the total value of the property, not how much you put in. The percentage is based on how much you put in, but when the market goes up 2.5%, it's 2.5% of the total value. So now watch how this impacts that chart on the housing versus Dow. All right? Your $25,000, if you bought a house in 1968 for 25 grand and just held it, it'd be worth $1.1 million all these years later. If you put $25,000 into the Dow Jones Industrial, you'd have $645,000 by now, which is a great return. But the 2,500% return is beautiful, but because of the nature of the leverage on my investment, that I only put $25,000 down on it, I eventually paid that house off, and I ended up with substantially more money because of the leverage. Okay? Now you'll find people who will say the stock market's a better place to invest. Right now, that's a hard argument to make. And again, the data proves out. Now there are some folks who will say, well, what about dividends? To which I would say, what about net yield? Right? I'm canceling out income from these investments, just doing a side-by-side comparison of total value. And because I used a mortgage to buy this property, I saw almost a doubling of my return, even though it looked like the Dow returned double. It actually returned about half, a little more than half.